for those who listen, there's going to be some people who listen to this podcast and they're going to say, wow, Alex's story growing up resonates a lot with me. Like my family was in a very similar position.
Mhm.
And then there's going to be others who listen to your story and say, I have no idea what it's
Exactly.
like to move as many times as you did, to
Yeah.
grow up in poverty, to grow up in Compton, right?
Yeah.
Which is, for those unfamiliar with California and LA and that area, right? Not the best city in the world by no means. So, like, how do you think you talk about the appetite and the hunger that it gave you? Do you think that your story would have been different if you grew up in different circumstances? You know, let's say you grew up in a family who did have more and who
Yeah.
didn't move and who had a stable surrounding. Like, how do you think that would have altered eventually what your story ended up being?
That's a question I would never know for sure. I think being the fact that basketball is the only sport that I ever played, some people always thought that you were going to burn out from basketball. Like, Alex, you're playing too much. You're going to burn out. Play something else or do something else or don't put all your eggs into one basket. Um, I think that question that you asked was something that I never thought about. It was always just moving forward to one step of making the team in high school and then getting a scholarship in college. And then, who knows where that will lead to. But the dream and aspiration was always reaching that goal of what's in front of me on that TV screen, watching the Los Angeles Lakers in the 80s versus the Chicago Bulls, and making it to that situation of being an elite force of playing in the NBA. How I was supposed to get there, I had no clue. I really didn't. It was just seeing the next guy in front of me and competing at the highest level possible. And like I said, my why and reason, it started from the roots of where I grew up from. It started from just looking at my parents. I wouldn't say struggle, but maintain the lifestyle of having four kids, and me being the youngest one. I had a bird's eye view of perspective of the do's and don'ts of my other two brothers and sisters, and we all play basketball. My older brother, I seen him do some amazing things on the court, but he didn't have that drive to continue to keep playing. And it's okay, you know what I mean? The calling of what he did went somewhere else, and the journey of where I was trying to go, of understanding of where he fell off of, where I didn't want to go. And that was just locking in and doing the things that I needed to do to play basketball, just having good grades and stuff like that, and not dealing with, the streets that's calling, and staying focused on, pursuing how to actually be a basketball player, and reading up on that. And my dad was a great mentor for me. He didn't play at a high level as far as basketball. He played at the junior college level, but he read so much about, Kobe Bryant, what he did, waking up, running 8 miles before school, and then going to school and then working out, So those things where I didn't know what the hell I was doing, to be honest with you, or where this was taking me. I just did it, with the understanding of, if this is what they're doing to get to that level, this is what I need to do for sure, So hope that answered your question for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier, and that you mentioned again just recently, which is your why. And
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like from an early age, like you were very clear on what your why was. You talk about your parents, you talk about your family.
Yeah.
I, Obviously, your why is important.
Yeah.
And I study a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm really into entrepreneurship. And they always talk about, people always talk about find your why, find your why. Because
Yeah.
when times are tough, when you're down, when you're down bad, like your why is gonna prevail, and it's gonna
Yeah.
help you push through the mud. I guess my question to you would be how important do you think your why and understanding your why was in just the grand scheme of things and in helping you succeed?
Yeah.
And then what would your advice be to people who are maybe struggling to find out what their why is?
Yeah. No, I think when I was playing basketball, I didn't know exactly what my why was, but it was it wasn't something that was always talked about. It was something more of the elusive of I can't go back because there's nothing back for me to go back to. You know, I can't go back to the streets. What else am I going to do? I have to keep moving forward. I have to play basketball. I have to figure this out. I have to make it work. You know, and I think that's not healthy to put all your eggs in one basket for sure. Growing up, but it worked for me, and I can't say for other people why it didn't work for them or what they stumbled on, or because there's some. And I came from again LA where there's some unbelievable athletes that play basketball. I played against some unbelievable players that were juggernauts that I don't know what happened to them or where they fell off at or what doors that they didn't have to open up. But I think it was a blessing for me. I don't tell this story a lot, but I think this is a perfect time to tell it. I really big in religion. Grew up in the church and stuff. And to make a long story short, I came home one day and my dad had a plate on the table, and I remember that plate so vivid. And it was a hamburger with no bun. It was some vegetables, some broccoli, and it was something else, some French fries. And I asked my dad. I literally asked. I said, "Dad, like, we don't got no ketchup. Like, you got ketchup?" And that was the first time actually seeing my dad cry. I don't know why it made him cry, but he was like, "Son, I'm trying to do the best that I can." And this is a man that was working extremely hard. He was a truck driver. He didn't want to do that. If anybody knows about truck driving, they're gone for weeks at a time and then coming back for weeks and missing a lot from family wise. And I remember that. And I finished my plate and I went to go take a shower because I came home from playing basketball at night. And I don't know why. It just compelled on me to get on my knees and pray, and I really was sincere about that. And I asked God to be the breadwinner for my family. And from that moment on, when I rose and got up from that steamy hot shower, it was just something that was anointed into me of just fulfilling that dream. And doors were opening at the last second. And it seemed like, my prayers was answered at the last second every time. If people don't know my story, it's remarkable, when it comes to it, because I went to Pepperdine University. I was never um, given a scholarship to go to Pepperdine. It was crazy because my AAU coach asked me, did I want to go to Pepperdine, where I didn't know where it was at in Malibu, California, to go to pickup runs. They were playing 5-on-5. So I go into the car with him, jump in the car with him. I go out to Malibu. I wake up, unbelievable atmosphere of a school. I get to the gym. It's nothing but about 100 kids, just like me. I didn't know what was going on in that gym, but the coach, if anybody knows basketball, was Paul Westphal at the time. And he was looking for one player to give a scholarship out of all these 100 kids. And I led my team to the last game against a nice team. I don't know who exactly was on that team at the time, but we won. And I remember after that game, him coming over to me, he was like, "Where are you going next year?" And I was like, "Man, I don't know where I'm going." As my senior year in high school, I was all this and that in high school, but I didn't pass my SATs. I missed it by pretty much 1 or 2 points. And I was going to go to prep school at the time. I said, I'm going to prep school in Hagerstown, Maryland, and I'm going to go from that point on and figure it out. And he was like, I remember he told me this. He said, "Man, can you run a 17? If you know what a 17 is, it's touching the line 17 times back and forth." I said, "No problem, cool." He said, "Nah, you don't have to do it. I just wanted to see if you were going to give me, a hard time." And I said, "No, it's no problem. It's going to only get me better, So he said, "I want to talk to you after the camp and stuff." So after the camp, he came in the middle, said, what he was here for. And then he called me over and I sat down with him and the assistant coach. And he was like, "We want to offer you a scholarship to Pepperdine." I was like, "What? I'm about to go to prep school within 2 weeks." He said, "Nah, you don't have to go to prep school. We want to offer you a scholarship to Pepperdine, and we think you're the last player that we need, to fulfill our roster." And from there, I was on my way to Pepperdine. I had a scholarship in my hand going back home from my parents. Showed them the scholarship, and within a week I was going to college. I didn't have a content of them trying to get me to go to that school. I didn't know nothing about Pepperdine. I just knew it was an unbelievable school, and I knew who Paul Westphal was, and I was going to be coached by somebody that made it to the finals with Charles Barkley for the Phoenix Suns. That was the coach, and knew how to actually get to that level. He was Mr. Basketball 50th, one of the top 50th players in California, and his USC records are still holding to that point, So those are the things that God did for me while opening doors, where he always kept in mind to me, remember what you said, if this is something that you want, I'm always be there for you.
I mean, just an incredible story, first of all. Second of all, the more I talk to athletes like yourself, the more I'm reminded of how many things need to go right for, we're talking athletes specifically, but really this applies to business as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how many things need to go right for you to quote unquote make it, right? In this case, like your goal was the NBA, so we'll use that as like the barometer for success.
Mm-hmm.
Like how many things needed to go right? Like you going to this.
You keep going on, I'm telling you.
I mean, I kind of want you to keep going on because I really want to like I want to double click on this and really dive into it because, like I said, I've had other athletes on, and I recently had Cassius Marsh on, who was a player for the Seahawks, and he talked about some of the best players that he ever played with on an NFL, I guess a practice field in this case, never got any playing time, like never really made it in the league. Like he said, like some of the most talented receivers, like more talented than Doug Baldwin, who was the starting, receiver for the Seahawks, than, Ricardo Lockett, like other guys that were starting for the team, never, like these guys never made the team, but they were the most talented guys ever. So it's like, there's so many things that need to happen. And, whether you believe in God and some of the miracles that he can work, or maybe you believe it's luck, for those who are maybe not religious, or maybe you believe it's some other divine intervention.
Yeah.
Like it just boggles my mind, man. It really does.
No, it's true. It really is. It's I've seen some amazing players just even coming out of high school, and if you guys think like Tayshaun Prince and Tyson Chandler and Paul Pierce, they talk about guys that came out of that area, Baron Davis, that are better than them, 10 times better than them, that had it, had the torch, and they were looking up to those guys, but they didn't pan out. And I was the same boat. I was not the best player in high school, but I did the things that was required for me to actually stay on track. And those things they echo. As me now pursuing to be a coach, I understand that, you need that string to build a relationship with your coach so they can actually echo your name to the next person, to move past the needle of individuals. What I'm saying by that is that, I was a good kid on and off the court. I didn't cause no mayhem. I didn't stir up the pot. They knew what they were going to get out of me. And they knew that, when the game was over, they knew where to find me. I was going to be back in that gym working on my game, So it's a coach's dream to have that, where you don't have to worry about certain players and they're just going to be continuously working. And it's going to be beneficial for them long haul for sure.
Yeah. What are some other moments in your journey that you feel, or looking back now, like you can't believe that it happened the way that it did?
My favorite player was Reggie Miller. Again, I lived in Malibu, California. Reggie Miller played for UCLA. He was an elite player. I grew up watching him destroy the Chicago Bulls and do everything that was with the Indiana Pacers logo tatted on his chest. At one particular time, I was at school, at summer school, and a good friend of mine, Adam Buckingham, he was the manager, equipment manager. And me and him had an amazing relationship. I just got off the phone with him today just now, and he was pretty much a guy that rebounded for me, played one-on-one, did everything for me. And he called me one time, and he was like, listen, I got a surprise for you. Come down, hurry up. I said, man, I'm about to go to school right now. I got a class that I got to go to. He said, nah, man, forget that. Come to the gym ASAP. You won't believe who's here. And it was Reggie Miller in the gym as I sprinted down and I sat to the top of the bleachers and I watched this guy work out. Now, I thought I was working out, but Reggie Miller was working out like he was a rookie trying to get back into the NBA. He was 13 years into the game, and literally that moment right there showed me that I wasn't working hard enough, but it also showed me how to work and be efficient, and how to build a report of your game. And Reggie, for like 1 or 2 weeks, worked out by himself. I didn't miss a practice because I watched every single practice. And from that point on, he saw the consistency of me actually being there, and he actually asked me to work out with him. And that built a relationship with Reggie. And as he started to gear up and playing 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 5-on-5 with us, the Pepperdine team, he understood that this was a great situation where he could work on his game. So he actually brought in other guys. I'm talking about guys on his team. Stephon Marbury when he was playing, Tyronn Lue when he was playing, Chauncey Billups when he was playing, Kevin Garnett, Al Harrington, all to our gym. This was the year that Kevin Garnett was MVP of the year. That actually helped my game so much. And the reason why is that Adam Buckingham, my guy, Chauncey Billups came up to him and asked him who's the best player. And at that particular time, I was, a junior, about to be a junior. I was a sophomore, about to be a junior. And I was pretty much the best player on that team at Pepperdine. But it wasn't just by me scoring. I was doing so much, consistent-wise. And he said, my guy, Alex Acker. So Chauncey actually gave a good eye to me. He looked at me. And he echoed my name to the GM at the time. And that was Joe Dumars. And I wasn't getting recruited by any NBA teams at that time. But that year, my junior year, I put my name into the NBA draft because my parents were pretty much living with me in the dorms. Again, they were poor. And I told my coach, Paul Westford, I said, man, listen, if there's anything I can do job-wise, I need extra money, income coming in. And at that time, he said, I can't do nothing for you. So I put my name in the NBA draft. And I was like, whatever happens, happen. I was halfway in, halfway out. And I had workouts for damn near every team there was. And I remember the workout for the Detroit Pistons. As everybody was shocked at how good I was, they were like, yeah, we're going to pick you. But one thing about the Detroit Pistons, I never touched the basketball. All I did was play defense in that workout. And I was like, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? And after that workout, I remember Joe Dumars came up to me and was like, man, we know you can play offense. We're all about defense. We want to see if you can play defense because we're a defensive team. And it clicked on me to understanding, like, okay, they did their homework on me. They knew it. And it was like, man, we got you. We're going to pick you. We got 2 picks. No, he didn't say nothing about we got 2 picks. He said, we're going to pick you if you're still around in the second round. So that guaranteed had me going in all the way and putting my name in the NBA draft because, again, my parents was living with me in my, apartment dorms in college, and they got evicted again, of course. So the stipends I was getting in college wasn't enough, to hold the whole family apart. So I sat down with my church family in the NBA draft, and I heard every name picked. And from that point on, it came to the 56th pick with Detroit Pistons. and they called Amir Johnson, who was the last player picked at high school. He was actually in Westchester, I forgot, in California. So I was mad because I was like, damn, Detroit, they said they were going to pick me. They never did. So I was pissed. And then I had my church family there in a hotel. My immediate family came out, flew out, all my friends and stuff in one room. And we watched from number 1 all the way to 56. So after the 56, my agent, he picked up the phone and he went outside. And they were still calling names. You know, in the NBA draft, it goes fast in the second round, like 56, 57, 58, 59. It came to 59, and they had a commercial break, and he came back in. My agent came back in, and he said, here's the phone. I think you want to take this. And I was like, who is it? Like, I'm already pissed. And it was Joe Dumars. And he said, we got you. And I was like, what you mean you got me? Like, you ain't got no more picks. And when I said that, the commissioner now, who was the assistant commissioner, Stern, he actually said my name with the last player picked in the 2005 to select Alex Acker with the Detroit Pistons. And it was just an amazing story from that point on. My family jumping up and down. Joe Dumars was, welcome to Detroit, and that was, the icing on the cake from that point on. Yeah.
I gotta ask you back to you playing pickup. Was KG as big of a trash talker as people make him seem out to be?
I think in the summertime it's even worse because it is no referees, and he had a couple of our guys intimidated like hell. A couple of our big men, we couldn't even inbound the ball. It was like a nightmare. And he was talking so much trash. It was amazing to actually have that in the arena. I'm talking about, it was like a Monstar team against little old Pepperdine basketball, Malibu Waves. And, it was great. It was great to actually play against those guys and go against some amazing athletes. Stephon Marbury was elite. He was dominant, quick as ever. Chauncey Billups was, lights out, Mr. Big Shot. That was the first time me actually seeing these guys on the court with me, and I got goosebumps right now just thinking about it for sure. Yeah.
I want to get back to draft night, but I kind of want to stick on this pickup game. Did you feel like you could compete with them?
Yeah.
Like, did you come out of that with more confidence or less confidence?
That pickup game was something that I needed because I think it was always in me, but I was playing at a level where you're only good as your competition, in a sense, right? So if your competition doesn't rise to the occasion, you don't know how good you can actually be. So as those guys came on the court, my competition went to a whole nother level. And I was doing things that I was like, damn, I'm really holding my own. You know what I mean? It was like an outer body experience in a point where like I'm the only one that can score for my team type thing. We're losing, but at the same time I'm holding my own and I'm figuring out ways how to score. I'm doing things that I never did before, and I'm breaking out of my shell that some coaches put you in, and it was great to see from me personally, but it was also great to see from the coaching staff because that year led me to having an unbelievable first team all WCC, averaging 17 points a game. I was averaging 13 my sophomore year and just skyrocketing. And we had some great teams that we played against: UCLA, USC, and Wisconsin, and Oregon. And I was destroying those guys.
Yeah, it's I've thought a lot about this, and maybe sometimes a little too much, but like the whole role of self-belief and how a lot of times like we are our own worst enemy when it comes to putting limits on what we can achieve. Like I've seen it with this podcast. Like when I first started this podcast, I was like, confidence at an all-time low. It's like, who am I to think that, I can start a podcast? Like, who am I to interview these people? and it came across in the interview. Like you could tell that like I wasn't super confident,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't confident in the questions I was asking, wasn't confident in my own voice, like
Mm-hmm.
making points and doing all of that. And now whatever 61 episodes in, whatever we're at,
Big time.
it's like my confidence has completely flipped.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is repetition, right? Like I've done 60 episodes. Like
Exactly.
I'm comfortable now. Like I'm confident. I've gotten good feedback. Like the podcast is gaining traction. So I see all these like signals that tell me that, people are enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
But I always wonder, like, is there a way to get to that level of confidence and self-belief without having to go through all of the repetition and all of the work? Like, is there a way that you can just fast track that
Mm-hmm.
self-belief, or is it just something that, naturally some people are maybe going to be a little more confident than others, but ultimately everyone gets to like their pinnacle level of confidence by doing the repetition, doing the work,
Yeah.
putting in the hours.
Yeah. No, it's you can't skip the grind. I think this is a beauty into it as well, the embracing of it, um, and the knowledge of you knowing that what you went through was something that you had to go through, and for me personally, it was something that I always played basketball one step higher than my ability. Like I was in high school, I played against college players, and I seen the capability of where I needed to be and how to get there. And it's just really knocking it one day at a time, and knowing like what you need to work on. The qualities that you just said was something that you didn't know you need to work on, but you saw the development of it getting better. And that's where the confidence comes from, and it's just like you can't skip days. You can't not understand what you're doing right, and how do you going to develop by not going back and looking at footage of yourself and being honest with yourself. I think that's the beauty of it all, and once you home in your honesty of yourself, it will grow, and it's tangible too. It's like it's contagious. You feed off of other people's energy in a sense as well.
I want to get your take on this because I recently heard this. I'm pretty sure it was from Alex Ramosi, who, if you're familiar with him,
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, has a whole, it does a lot of content creation, big social media following. Um, like he was talking about confidence, and he was saying how a lot of people can become more confident if they take pressure off themselves. So, like for example, like for guys, right? This is gonna be super relatable, but like if you're going on a date with a girl and you feel nervous,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna feel less confident. But part of the reason why you're so nervous is because sometimes like we go into dates thinking, "Oh, this is my wife," or like like this girl is the one, you know. So then like if you go into the date thinking like this is gonna be my wife, like yeah, you're gonna be freaking
Yeah.
nervous, man.
Yes. Yeah. You put on
But
the
like if you go, yeah, you put too much pressure on yourself. But if you go into it thinking like, all right, I'll see how it goes. Like, maybe it's a girl I date for a year, maybe it's a girl I don't date at all, like, or maybe it's my wife. Who knows? So I'm curious, like, did you ever feel like, I guess first of all, A, thoughts on that, and then B, did you ever feel like you were putting too much pressure on yourself, and did that affect your performance at all?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I can answer. I don't know how to answer that because I always grew up with like, what is pressure in the sense of what is pressure? Like, why is there have to be pressure if there's something that you do and you love waking up doing every single day? You know, how can that be pressure if you're blessed to actually wake up and do something you love every single day? It's a joy into it. It's almost a rush and adrenaline to getting to back to that situation, of feeling that aliveness. So, sport, whatever sport it is, guys that excel and compete at a high level, it's an adrenaline rush, and it's a high that, you look forward to. I've been retired for, I don't know, maybe 4 years by now, and I still work out. Like, I love it so much, I can't stop it. It's in my DNA, it's in my nature. And it's an identity that, I embrace, and I think that's the most important thing, that you got to embrace it. You can't shy away from it, and it will always show when the moment's needed. I think that's what happened to my game, where I worked so hard for it that when it was time to show at the right time, I was able to do that. And it came from the work ethic. It came to just being honest with yourself. If I needed to work on my right hand, I drilled home into it, and those pressurable moments where people think it's pressure, it's normal now, getting to the free throw line, making a game winning free throw, it's normal now. It's like, it's muscle memory. It takes over, so as you drill home so much into it, you don't even think on it. Your lights turn off, as far as your thinking cap, and it's just reaction at that point.
That reminds me of this thing that I heard Steph Curry talk about. It was actually my first time ever hearing this term. I think it was in a podcast he did when JJ Redick was a podcaster, not the head coach of the Lakers. He had Steph Curry on. I think this was maybe 3 years ago ish, and Curry talked about like the flow state. Mm-hmm. And how, like, when he's on the court, like, he's not really thinking about what move he's gonna do, or when he's gonna shoot. I don't know if you remember, he had that one move against the Clippers. This is maybe like 8 years ago now, where he like dribbled between 3 or 4 guys, like step back into the 3-point line and put it up, right? Like iconic, right? Like iconic Curry shot.
Coach, you seen Curry, like, what the hell? Why would you shoot that?
Yeah, right. That's all-time pan by whoever the camera guy was for that game.
Yeah.
Just all-time shot.
Amazing.
But Curry brought up that specific move, and he was like, oh, you think I just like made it up on the spot? Like, no, like I would have chairs out on the practice court, and I practiced dribbling between all the chairs and pulling up from 3.
Yeah.
And then I had and then that got me curious about the flow state. And then I had George Mumford on, who is, world-renowned, I guess, sports psychologist, but worked with Kobe, worked with Jordan, worked with Phil Jackson. And he's big on the flow state, and he tries to get people, like, show people how to get into the flow state. He helped Kobe achieve it, helped Jordan achieve it. So
it's true.
Is that like an accurate way of describing how you felt on the court?
Yeah, I think the label of confining yourself into one particular person or athlete or whatever the case may be, I think that situation is dead now. Back in the old days, you would have a defined role. You're a shooter, you sit in the corner, you shoot. You drill home and you work on those drills a million times, but you don't leave that spot. If you're a point guard, you work on passing. That's it, nothing else. You know what I mean? And Steph Curry is one of those guys that altered the game at a high level, and, taken away from his 3-point standpoint of what he does. He's an elite passer. He's a ball handler, one of the best ball handlers that's on the court. He's shifty, and he's creating, not just for himself, for others, and it expands his game so much where you don't put yourself you're creating. You're creative as possible, and it comes to it. You talk about Steph Curry, the stuff that he does off the court that people don't see, juggling tennis balls and having masks, and the way he works out, the way his trainer is not sticking to a script, but, creating on the fly, and it forces him to control the way he breathes. It forces him to control the way he thinks, to calm himself down, putting himself in certain situations where he has to turn off the thinking cap, and he has to react to, the patterns of movement. And those are the things that people don't understand, where they take lightly of, how is he doing this? Why isn't anybody else doing this? And how does he keep getting better? He doesn't put himself in his box. He's always creating different ways. And the same thing with LeBron James. I think people burn out at a certain point where they think too much. And when you start thinking too much, that's when you're stuck. And you're thinking about, should I retire? You're thinking about What's next for me outside of the court? Are you thinking about business ventures instead of locking into the most important thing of, for me, playing basketball with an orange? You know, those things come into mind, and being creative. I never put myself in a box of just being a point guard. Coach put me in as a point guard, I can shift into being a team player. Coach puts me in as a two guard, I can shift to creating for myself and looking for a shot first instead of passing. Coach put me in as a three man, I'm looking for rebounding and putbacks and ones, and you know what I mean? Being assertive as far as using my first step on the court, knowing that the other three man is not in the same shape as me. So I put myself in those categories where I don't have to be able to get pulled off the bench. I'm always been useful for the right situation at times.
That's a really good point about just when you were talking about how players in the past were put in this box, and it's like, you're good at this, just keep doing this. Like the first guy that comes to mind is like a Bruce Bowen type. It's like the guy and corner threes went together like PB and J, man. Like
I think the last person that just left was PJ Tucker just now.
Yeah.
No disrespect to PJ Tucker, by no means.
Right, but dude, I remember watching Bruce Bowen. I'm like, I don't think he's physically able to shoot from any other spot on the court except that damn corner, man.
Exactly.
But it's an interesting point. I have to ask real quick on Curry. Impact, in terms of impact on the game. Where do you rank him all time?
It's only a few of those, handful wise. I don't even put Kobe in that mix. I put Allen Iverson, Shaquille O'Neal, and Steph Curry. Those three, I would say, that really impact the game tremendously. That really didn't give a fuck, what people were saying, and those three were huge juggernauts of who I can think of right then and there that really changed the game and expanded, for sure. Dominant force.
I have to ask, just because the NBA fan inside of me, but what's your reasoning for AI, Shaq, and Curry, and why not have Jordan in there?
Why not have Jordan?
Yeah.
Well, Jordan is number one, I say, for sure. You can always put Jordan in any category, for sure. But to really see how the game had to change because of that person, you had Jordan, you had Clyde Drexler, you had Vince Carter, you had a lot of players that were doing things like Jordan. I would say Jordan-ish. T-Mac as well too. That was doing Jordan-ish things. But the culture had to shift because of a particular person. You got the commissioner trying to implement the 4-point play because of Steph Curry right now, talking about this, which is ridiculous. You got Shaquille O'Neal, where I was on a team with the Detroit Pistons, and I had guys like Dale Davis and Ben Wallace that were only specifically there just to guard Shaquille O'Neal. That's why they had an unbelievable career, trying to stop this guy. And there was teams that only had players just to stop one person, and that's Shaquille O'Neal. Allen Iverson, it speaks for itself. The culture shifted, from street clothes, the tattoos, the cornrows, the crossover, bringing a different swag to the game. So those three guys really, in my era of where I actually grew up from, really changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, very fair point. And I actually agree with you on the Jordan take. And that's in no way taking away from his greatness. It's just, again, to your point, in terms of actually impacting the game, changing the rules, right? Like, that's what we're talking about right now. We're not talking about individual basketball talent, just from a cultural, societal, even basketball perspective. Did they change the rules? Did they impact the league in some way? I think the AI one is great, man, because I mean, I was super young when AI was, at the peak of his powers. But
Mhm.
for those who don't know, like, go read. There's a couple good biographies on AI, or even just like go on YouTube or read a couple articles, just like understanding where the NBA was before AI,
Yeah,
and then what he did to change how the NBA was viewed and how much pushback he got from the
yeah,
league, from other fans.
crazy.
Crazy, man, right? Like,
Yeah.
just for his style and just for the way that he carried himself. And you brought up the tattoos and the cornrows and like all this stuff and the way
Mhm.
that he dressed. Like, it was so different from what everyone else is doing. So I agree with the AI take. Like, I think his obviously his impact was more like cultural and societal than maybe on the basketball court,
For sure.
but like still just massive, massive impact.
Massive impact. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, Alex, I want to ask you, man. So you get drafted by the Pistons, and we went through your draft night story.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of the gold medal. I guess it's called the gold medal syndrome, but um, it happens when and a lot of Olympic athletes talk about this.
Hmm.
They go, they train their entire life for this one race, for this one competition.
Hmm.
They end up winning, they get the gold medal, and then they sit there and they're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Like what do I do now? Like, I've achieved everything I've worked my entire
Yeah.
life for.
Yeah.
Did you have that feeling when you got drafted by the Pistons, or did you see it as this is now the start of this next chapter of my next journey, and there's still a lot more to achieve out there?
Um, that is a good question. And now I can tell this story with an honest, true opinion and not hold back. Again, my childhood dream was to make it to the NBA. You're an entrepreneur, so you can understand and relate to this. If you don't set goals that pretty much are not even close to actually reaching, um, you start to lose the understanding of setting another goal. So my goal was to reach the NBA. As I got closer towards reaching that goal, I never set bigger goals ahead of that goal. If that makes sense. So once I got closer to getting to the NBA and seeing myself in the summer league and seeing myself in veteran camp and then making the team, I never exceeded past those goals. And I think that was my downfall of me not actually pushing myself even more further of reaching another goal. And, strangely, it's not just 5,000 individuals that make it to the NBA that's played in the NBA pretty much. It's a 1% group that's in that league. As I reached that goal and seeing that that was something that was attainable, I never set myself up getting rookie of the year, which is ridiculous, let alone ridiculous to making it to the NBA. But it's a goal. Or getting a second year contract, And as I got closer to understanding that I didn't set that goal, the appetite for me of pushing myself even further, it was content. I saw myself doing things outside of the box that I normally didn't do, and that was getting distracted as far as not staying, you know, making the main thing, basketball, you know. And I had another contract to play with the Detroit Pistons, but as I understood, again, I was taking care of my whole family at that time. And if anybody doesn't know, as you're a professional athlete, you're an entertainer. And if you're an entertainer, you go around each city, state, and you play basketball for these cities. And each city has a different tax bracket. So that's why when people say, "Oh, you make $1 million," you think you have $1 million in your bank account. Well, it's completely false because Los Angeles has two teams. Toronto is one of the highest tax brackets there is. So half of my money was gone before I can even touch it from Miss Uncle Sam. And I was living not just for myself, but for my family as well too. My first year, I still lived with my family. My mom and dad was with me in Detroit. A kid that's 22 years old was coming home as an NBA player back home to his parents. And so I was still trying to figure those things out. And it was rough for me to actually break away from that and become my own man and understand that it was time to do that and put things in perspective of having those goals as well too. So the distractions came as money came, and I had an opportunity to go overseas and play for double the amount of money I was getting paid for my first year in the NBA. And it was enticing. It really was, but it was knocking me off my pivot of pursuing my goal to be a elite athlete in the NBA. I was already in the door. Why would I want to leave? You know, and the only reason why was to make more money. And I seen that. So I went to Europe after my first year. And the best thing about that situation, again, you know, going back to that story of me, you know, asking God to be the breadwinner for my family. Joe Dumars saw it as, who was the GM for the Detroit Pistons, saw it as an opportunity for me to get better. As I got drafted to the NBA, this was a team that really didn't need me, Detroit Pistons. It only needed me to develop. I was behind Chauncey Billups, just a list of names, Lindsey Hunter, Carlos DeRoyo, Carlos Delfino. These guys were elite players. And then Rip Hamilton as a two guard, you know. I wasn't going to see a single minute that whole year. I went down to the G League. I pretty much averaged 22 points a game. They called me back up immediately because they didn't want other teams to see me play. Because they knew if other teams saw me play, they were going to draft me. They not draft me. They were going to pick me up. So I was stuck in a middle situation where I wasn't playing in the NBA, and they didn't want me to play in the G League. So I was not seeing my jersey, you know. So I was just practicing. I was getting frustrated. I was like, man, I don't want to do that again next year. I want to play. 24 years old. I'm ready to go. So I went to Europe and I made a lot of money. And I seen what it had to offer, and I was the man. I was blessed to actually be on the team with the Detroit Pistons to see how to actually win games for my team. Looking at Chauncey every day, asking questions, looking at Rip Hamilton every day, asking him questions. So I felt that I was ready for that. And I went to Olympiacos in Greece, Athens, and I had an unbelievable rookie year. Made it to EuroLeague Final Four. And the best thing, again, was the Detroit Pistons had my rights. So nobody else can bid for me, even though I was making a lot of noise in Europe. And then I get injured my last game. I tore my meniscus. The very last game. Nothing happened. I went up, dunked the ball, came down. I had a pop in my knee. And I couldn't go back to Detroit as they wanted me back. And I was like, man, I told my agent, I don't want to go back. I can't have them see me injured. So I said, whatever team that wants to have me play next year, I'll go for them in Europe. So I went to Barcelona, one of the biggest clubs there is out here in Europe. And Barcelona welcomed me. I got better, did a great year, made it to the Final Four again, lost to Maccabi, Tel Aviv, and Israel. And I was ready to come back to the NBA. And I had a chip on my shoulder because I played on a level that nobody else played at. You know, if anybody knows about European basketball, it's elite level. Some say it's better than the NBA. And I was really, you know, holding my own at that point, and I felt confident where I deserved the spot to be on the team and play. So I signed with the Detroit Pistons again, and they picked two other guys in front of me. Carl, I forgot who it was. But anyway, two guys that was in the same position as me. So then I'm back to square one, fighting for position wise, which is completely fine. It's no problem at all. But I never got a fair shot because I was on a team where it was a coach that needed to actually win in order to keep his job. I'm not going to say his name. If you look him up, you can't find him. Unbelievable coach, but he needed to actually win. So he didn't play the rookies or myself. He thugged it out with Chauncey Billups, playing him tremendous, too many minutes, and all those guys, Rip Hamilton, all those guys. And then, I saw the first trade happen where they traded Chauncey for Allen Iverson. I was on that team. So I was playing with Allen Iverson as well. Chuck, if anybody knows what his name is. And then I for sure knew I wasn't going to play. So you got Allen Iverson, You got Rip Hamilton. I'm not getting any minutes at all. So at that deadline, as far as the All-Star game, I said, man, let me get traded, man. Let me figure out something else. So I respect Joe Dumars for doing this for me. He actually traded me to the Los Angeles Clippers back home. And I saw myself playing a lot more, but at the same time, it wasn't good basketball. I seen good basketball before, and we were losing bad. It was the worst team in the league. The Clippers were. I was playing, but I wasn't playing enough, and I was pissed off that I was on this team, and they were content on being, who they were. They didn't care about winning and stuff. And at that point, literally, I was like, listen, I want to go back to Europe. I felt the hunger and the why of playing good basketball, some quality basketball, and I want to go back to Europe. So I proceeded to go back to Europe that year and continue from that point on. Yeah.
So many questions, man. I have to start though. Again, the NBA fan in me can't resist. You mentioned playing with Chauncey and Rip Hamilton, Big Ben. I mean, championship team, right? Like,
Yeah.
you get drafted into a team who is just coming off winning the championship, beating the Lakers, who are going for a three-peat.
Exactly.
Like, I have to imagine that there was, I guess, some level of intimidation when you joined that team, or maybe there wasn't for you. But I'm also curious, like, just behind the scenes, like, what were these guys doing that you felt was different from the rest of the league, or kind of what was their championship mentality like?
It was a brotherhood. I seen a big difference. They did everything together. We did everything together. We ate together. We after games, we went out. We all went out together. It was no secrets as far as what we were doing. It was a band of brothers like you saw on, I don't know, Netflix or whatever it was back then. It was literally that. Every person had a voice on that team. And it was something remarkable. That's what I said. I was really blown away as far as how they guys won. And to mention those guys' names, if you knew their stories, they were underdogs. They were left out of the litter, guys that was lost, and that didn't pan out for certain teams. Minnesota for Chauncey, Portland for Rasheed, Ben Wallace. They didn't think he was even a basketball player. Tayshaun Prince, coming out of Kentucky. People didn't know that he can actually last as far as his frame wise and stuff, and they all put it together, And again, like you said, I wasn't pretty much an instrument on that team on the court for sure, but together we were a great elite team, and still are today to this point.
Second question that I have to ask you is, playing in Europe, you said that some consider European basketball better than the NBA.
Yeah.
I think the average NBA fan doesn't realize how competitive European basketball is, and the fact that it's played at a very high level. So I want you to educate both me and the audience on just the level of European basketball. And I'll say this too, like Luka, right? Like Luka Doncic, when he was coming out, people were questioning him because they're like, oh, he played, in Europe and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, he was like 13 years old playing against grown men in Europe.
Yeah.
And like dominating. But I say that because even within that statement, right, there's that stigma of like, oh, European basketball isn't high level, right?
Yeah.
So like Luka played in Europe, but like, who cares? It's not that great. Like, of course he's going to dominate, right? The level of competition. So I want you to educate myself and the audience just the level of play in European basketball.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to actually go about that for sure. It's meaningful basketball. There's not one game that doesn't mean something. Every game is an advantage. And like the NBA, you kind of know the outcome of certain teams. If Boston plays, I don't know, the Washington Wizards, you can bet on it that Boston's going to win. I think in Europe, there's no sad story as far as you just know the outcome right now. Each game means something as far as not just winning, but points wise as well too. You can still win a game, and you can still be in the last category because you don't have the right amount of points into the season. So every point counts. every measurement as far as every game, victory wise, counts for sure. And it's tactical when it comes to basketball out here. It's more of a IQ level of really embracing that standpoint as far as not so much athleticism. And there are some high quality leagues like France that I played in that guys are jumping out the gym. You know, you can only imagine these guys are really elite players jumping out the gym. But it's tactical and you have to have a jump shot. I think everybody on the court, because you can't sit in that key and well, you can sit in the key. It's like college basketball playing with pro athletes, in a sense. So I really embrace the game because the energy and environment as far as the supportive fans are really there and engaged. I played on a team my first year at Olympiacos. I was blown away by the support, the energy. Guys pay tickets and they don't even sit down. They're standing up, cheering left, right, and center. So I could talk about that all day, as far as the support. Going to a derby as far as a away game, and you're the only 12 guys to get off that bus, and you have fans that hate your guts, and you're playing and you're shushing the crowd and quieting them. It's a goosebump feeling to actually be a part of, and it's one of those things that you got to really see and understand, and people that it's hard to actually explain to, because they don't see that energy and vibe on courts like that. You can't get that in the NBA. You really can't. So from the supportive fans, that's one big thing. You're on a smaller court. You got to be creative as possible more than anything. You got 7-footers that have crazy wingspans that are, remarkable as far as the energy of what they bring to the table. But the court is so small where you got to be strategic as far as the movement that you use. And the list goes on, man. I'm serious. You just got to really embrace it for sure.
I love those videos where they'll show, like, I'm pretty sure they showed home games of Olympiacos and other teams across Europe, and it's like fans are jumping up and down. They're like lighting flares in an indoor stadium.
I got crazy stories from that. Yeah, for sure.
Just wild. And I'm sure as a player though, like when you're sitting, like I guess standing on the court and you're seeing that around you, like I have to imagine, like, because I've talked to other athletes and they're like, oh yeah, when I'm playing, like I zone out, like I don't see the crowd, I don't hear the crowd. But like in that sort of environment, I have to imagine that like you see some of it, like you feel it.
No, I remember a couple of times where the fans, they're crazy, man. I'm bringing the ball up the court one time in my home court against, I don't know, Partizan, matter of fact. But it's all, I didn't understand, let me go back. I didn't understand that you will have rival teams come to certain games, but certain clubs that you play for, you can't have the other fans come because it will be a controversy. So the first game I played, I asked Scooney Penn, who's Ohio State Buckeye alumni. He was my point guard my first year. And I asked him, I said, man, why aren't the other fans on the team? He said, what, are you crazy, man? They would kill them if they came to the game. It's only our fans, bro. They are not. I was like, this is crazy. This is unbelievable. So all you see is red in the whole arena, and you see flares, and you see all kinds of stuff. So to tie into it, I'm bringing up the ball in center court, and I see a flare go over my head and hit the other fans right in the chest as I'm having somebody guard and defend me as I'm trying to protect the basketball. And we got to play through this. And when I played back then, it was smoke. So at halftime, during the game, it's completely fine. You come at halftime, it's a huge cloud over you. It's like, it was crazy how much the energy was it was just too much, man. It really is. And I got stories for days of what the fans did and all kinds of stuff, man. But yeah, you got to be in there to brace it.
It reminds me of some reporter was asking Jokic, like, it's like, oh, like were you like bothered by the crowd tonight? I forget what game it was.
Yeah.
And he just looked at
He
him. He
said,
was
"Man, I'm from
like,
Serbia."
yeah, I played in Serbia, brother. Like, this is nothing, man.
This is the team I'm talking about. Partizan, Serbia, Partizan. It's crazy.
Yeah.
The most
Yeah.
unbelievable arena ever to play in, man. Yeah, unbelievable.
Nah, wow. I'm actually, so my family's from Serbia, actually, funny enough. So like
That's awesome.
I like the Red Star, like Partizan, like that whole derby, like that
Yeah,
rivalry, like I'm very well familiar with that whole scene. And yeah, Serbian fans are crazy. I would think twice about going to like a Serbian basketball game just for like safety reasons. um but no, it's why, and even within my family, like you have, people who are Red Star fans or
yeah.
Partizan fans. For like the American audience, this is going to mean nothing, but
Die
it's
on
just a
fan.
crazy, and it's like a different level of passion. Like to your
Yeah,
point, like it's such a deep level of passion. Like
yeah,
I've heard stories, like my dad used to tell me, like, yeah, like, it was a family divided for some time,
yeah.
because if one team was
Exactly.
winning versus the other, it's
Nobody
like
talks.
nobody talks, man. Like my dad was saying, like, they would be throwing chairs out the window because they'd be so angry, and like it's like, how, like, you can't teach that level of passion, like you
No,
just
you
can't.
can't. You got to be born embedded with this for sure.
Yeah.
My wife's sister has a tattoo of Juventus on her.
Mm,
Okay, so it's like um, it's a family tradition that's inherited and it passed on and on. And half of our family is AC Milan fans, and the other half is Juventus fans. So it's like when those games, nobody's talking. It's
right.
quiet, crickets. Yeah,
Right. No, it's wild. And like, to your point, you can't, I mean, you can tell all the stories that you have,
for sure.
but like, to what you said, unless you're embedded in it, unless you're there, unless you're part of it, it's so hard to describe just the feeling and the experience,
Yeah,
to anyone. So, definitely jealous you got that experience, man. I want to be respectful of your time, so we'll wrap up here soon, but
okay.
I do have to ask you, as we segue, past your NBA career and into what you're doing now.
Hmm.
There was a point, I believe you retired in 2021. You started your company, Amongst Elite Capital, in
Yeah,
2024.
yeah,
So there's that downtime of about 3 years.
yeah.
And I'm curious how you handled retirement from
Mhm.
NBA and giving up a sport that you've played your entire life,
Yeah,
and just that whole transition, that 3 year transition period, how that went for you.
yeah. No, it was uncharted territory as far as what next. I think athletes go through that a lot as far as what do you want to do next? Do you want to coach? Do you want to sit on the bench again and do the same thing that you just did all over again and be supportive of the next generation coming up? Do you want to what is it that wakes you up in the morning, that drive of getting things going? Where's that love coming from again? And it actually hit me as far as when COVID, where everybody sat down and started to figure out what they wanted to do next. And that was a great time for me. And again, that calling as far as God of what I wanted to do, it came across through a friendship of mine that I had with a founder of Amongst League Capital, that we were doing business together. And he came across and he was like, "Man, what do you think that athletes need best?" And I said they need some way of diversifying from a portfolio standpoint of growing their income and letting their money work for them while they go get more money, in layman's term. So as I told him my stories and cries as far as my financial burdens, as well as, the things that I would have loved to do more, um, we put pen and pad together and formed Amongst the Capital. We understood the things that athletes go through as far as not being on top of things as they need to be, as far as diversification, as far as their portfolio financially, the trust, as much trust as athletes are, we're trusted by default, as far as trustworthy wise, and giving the keys and vehicles to other people that not understand where they come from and not understanding the seriousness of it. Um, Financial advisors, individuals that want to actually be family members and take on that burden as far as the finances. We saw that happen a lot. As we engaged and talked to other athletes, we understood that, it didn't stop at just as basketball players, but football players, soccer is one of the biggest things. Um, Athletes get paid a lot of money, and what to do with it is something that we wanted to actually give them a service of. So, a monthly capital was born 2021, um, not for athletes only, but entertainers, entrepreneurs, accredited investors. Diversifying is what we do in the portfolio. So we have vehicles as far as real estate, as far as blockchain technology involved as well too, as far as other strategies that we give great returns for our clientele. And it's really one of those things where um, I'm blessed to actually have and give of a service. My why and reasoning, because I know it's a cause for something, and just sharing my story as far as what I've been through and where I'm going with this is just really remarkable for sure.
I want to set you up here with a couple facts. 60% of NBA athletes and 78% of NFL athletes experience severe financial issues after leaving their respective leagues.
Yep.
Let me repeat that. 60% of NBA athletes, 78, damn near 80% of NFL athletes experience severe financial issues after leaving their respective leagues.
100%.
Why do you think that number is so high?
Well, it falters into a lot of situations. Athletes sometimes don't understand how gullible they are at times, where they need to be more firm, being on top of things, um, giving giving freedom to people that don't deserve it, not vetting individuals, and not actually doing your due diligence is huge. Thinking that you can actually just go ahead and play basketball and stick to that and not worry about the long game as far as retirement. They always say, as far as athletes, you die twice. Once you put down that ball, whatever it is, that's a death standpoint of you actually having to start completely over. So you don't want to start over from scratch. You want to actually let that build into the flow of your retirement. So that cushioning is a lot more softer. And to answer your question, it's a crazy deficit. 60%, as far as athletes within 3 years go broke, and it shows because I think every athlete has a financial advisor. So if they're supposed to advise them, how is that even possible?
It's a good question. Like, how does it, like, how, yeah. But then what's the point? Then why even have the financial
point
advisor?
Of having a financial advisor, like,
right.
They're supposed to advise you in that, so, and sometimes the naiveness of athletes not being open-minded of just even hearing what I have to offer, it's completely fine and normal, because I know there's great things. There's venture capitalists, there's private equities that are doing amazing right now, and tapping into those resources are something that athletes are doing a lot more. WNBA and NBA, you know what I mean? The equity into it, and not just pursuing the bag and the purse of money, but athletes really wanting equity into companies. They're seeing the value of what they bring to the table and not just being athletes. They want a piece of the steak, which is great. NIL deals is more shocking than anything to athletes. They see them getting a bunch of money. They don't know what comes with that. They don't know the taxes that are involved. They don't know how to diversify right then and there. I think one of the biggest things for me, if I had the kind of money coming in, I don't think my drive to pursuing to get to the NBA would be so buried to that point. If I'm 18 years old in college having $1.2 million, then what? Did I make it now or what? So those things are shocking. To put that to use right then and there and have that money working for you is something that you need to do early. Yeah.
That's actually a really good point, because I mean, how many times, I'm sure you're super familiar with it, has like an NBA, NFL, pick your sport athlete gotten a huge contract and then they fall off a cliff.
Hmm.
You know, they secure the bag and then they are, you know, a shell of themselves,
Yeah.
and yeah, they're comfortable. So it's interesting. Like I actually never thought about that. Like with NIL money now, has that timeline just been moved, you know, I guess forward in a way to 18-year-olds, where
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you're the starting quarterback for Alabama and you're making $2 million, right? Like,
Yeah.
are you just comfortable now?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah. No, it shifted. I think it's only been 160 people that actually put their name in the NBA draft, which is the lowest number ever in the NBA draft this year. And the reason why is because they see the luxury of going back to college and making more money than pursuing to be a second round pick or not even get drafted, you know. And that guaranteed money, it only works for not even all first rounders, but only about 12 of them that you're guaranteed your money. You know, the rest of them you have to actually. When I got drafted, I didn't know. I thought I was on the team right then and there. Since I heard my name, I didn't know I had to make a team still. You know, so those things are really understanding. Like, why do I have to struggle and try to put my name in the draft where I got 2 more years or 1 more year left, and I can still make 1.4 or something, 2 million in college now. So those things are really starting to strike a nerve for NBA, NFL as well too. They're even having I don't know if this is true or not, but college athletes are fighting for the luxury of staying even after the 4 years, that they can still play. So there's going to be athletes at 28 years old still in college playing for, a lot of money right then and there. So um, there's some struggling times right now, uncertainty times right now, but you still got to secure the bag at the end of the day for sure.
Yeah. A couple more questions to round us out here. I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking too, like, even with the NIL and with money, right? Like Cooper Flag, I think, is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
But if Cooper Flag, let's say, didn't like the teams at the top of the lottery, um, could he have just been like, I guess this is more true for the NFL, just because the NFL is a set draft and there's no lottery.
Yeah.
But like, if there's a college player coming out and he's like, you know what, like, why would I go play for the Browns
Yeah.
or the Titans, who are not in a great situation,
Yeah.
when I can just stay in college an extra year, still make like $2 million,
Yeah.
and basically play the odds next year, and maybe it's a team I'd rather go to who ends up with the number one pick.
Yeah. I can save my money, live in the dorms, get stipend, get 2 million, got my friends and family. What else
Yeah,
do I need? You know what I mean? I am the man on the court in in college. I can get a
right.
degree as well too. There's no rush. I think the urgency of the rush, for me, my urgency was to get to the money so I could provide for my family, and that's why I left early. And I saw that I couldn't do it by staying another year. It was not tangible for me to actually do that and have my family be in that situation. So now that that void is missing, what is it that the NBA is giving to athletes, or
It's
NFL players?
what's super funny about all of this is, and I'm sure you remember, but and even still to this day, the amount of people who complain about the whole one and done in college, like, players should have to stay in college for at least 2 years or get at least a degree, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is like, like in some ways, like returning that balance, or like rectifying the whole one and done.
Yeah.
Because now, like we talked about, like, players are just gonna have they're exactly to your point, like what you just said with your journey, and it's true for a lot of athletes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you don't have that urgency now to go and secure a contract with a team in the NBA. Like, the NBA is no longer the sole way that you can get to money.
Yeah.
Like, you can get to money in college. So it'll be interesting. You mentioned that this year it was a record low number of players entering their name into the draft.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see like how the whole one and done thing plays out, and maybe it just completely goes away.
Yeah. No, I think BYU has a great example right now with this kid that's going there. They signed for almost 16 million or something like that, ridiculous amount. And they're projected for him to be the first round pick. If he's making this amount of money his first year, I don't see him making that in the NBA the first year. And it only goes up in NC2A. You know what I mean? Like you said, what's the kid's name out of Duke right now? He Flag. He made 28
Yeah.
million off just endorsements alone, off of 2 endorsements alone. You know what I mean? Like they got him at the right time. But now guys are starting to wake up and see the value of what they have and the avenue of how to get there. It's not so a luxury to actually hurry up and get to that point right now to the NBA. I think you can still make your bag. There's guys literally, and it hurts too if you look at it from another standpoint, because there's guys putting their names in the portal and they don't belong to be in the portal. I think some guys got to wake up and see that that portal was not always your friend, and it can swallow you up. Some guys are still in the portal right now that thought they were better than what they are, averaging 4 or 5 points because they're they think they're the stuff. So it'll wake you up for sure. Yeah.
It'll be super. I mean, it's going to be super interesting to see how this whole thing plays out, and just see. Everyone has an opinion on the NIL, and everyone is going to state their case. So it would just be interesting to follow. Alex, I do have to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
I've had other athletes on the podcast who have become entrepreneurs post their career. And I'm curious from your perspective, why do you think athletes, and it's a larger trend, we're seeing a ton more athletes post retirement go into entrepreneurship, whether it's starting their own business. You started your essentially an investment fund, right?
Yeah.
Kind of an advisory business to athletes, some type of business. Why do you think athletes make great entrepreneurs?
I think an athlete is an entrepreneur in itself already because they bet on themselves from the beginning. That's what entrepreneurship is, really betting on yourself and breaking away from the norm, the traditional 9 to 5. It's easy to, I shouldn't say it's easy. I apologize for saying that. It's extremely hard to consistently do that 9 to 5. And I respect guys that's doing that to 9 to 5. But it's extremely hard to actually bet on yourself and go against the grain and figure out on your own how to actually bring in capital the unconstructed way. And athletes do that. For 24 years, I believed in myself until I heard my name get called. I never had a job, but I put everything in one basket as believing in myself, of getting to that point of seeing that first check with the Detroit Pistons logo stamp on it. And that's entrepreneurship in itself right then and there. So in a nutshell, I hope that answered your question.
I think it's a really good point. Just the appetite for risk, and I guess risk tolerance, because you're right, like entrepreneurship, like it's all one big risk. Like you never know, and I'm sure you've experienced it. It's like you never know what's going to work and what's not going to work. I could be putting all this time in this podcast and it could just not work, and just nothing comes out of it, versus like a 9 to 5, no matter how crappy things are going or how well things are going, at the end of the week, you're going to have a check. Like you're going to get, you're going to get money.
But you're building somebody else's entrepreneurship.
Right.
If it makes sense.
You're building someone else's dream.
Right. Building somebody else's dream. Exactly.
Yeah. So why not build your own, man? No, I love that. Yeah. I mean, I've gotten similar answers from other athletes. Like they've all said similar things. It's like, A, we know how to work hard. B, we have an appetite for risk, and we're just comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think that phrase, is huge too for entrepreneurship. Is like, are you okay being uncomfortable? Like being in this gray area where
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love being uncomfortable. It wakes me up. It gets my brain thinking and how to create something and how to do something. I think that comes with coaching as well too, in training. It's one of those things of just putting things together every single day, of the uncertainty of going through and figuring out how the day is going to be. done and finished off of your hard work and energy and effort. Giving 100%. If you don't want to work, fine. You don't get nothing out of it today. If you want to work a little bit, you only get a little bit out of it. If you want to bust your ass and work extremely hard, and that's what you're going to get out of it. But it might not happen today or tomorrow. But I guarantee you, if you keep knocking on that door, it's going to bust open for sure. You just got to keep
Love
going.
it, man.
Yeah.
Last question for you. And I think this is going to tie in the entire podcast and all the themes, your journey, everything we talked about. We talked about your why when you were playing basketball.
Yeah.
And a big part of it was being able to provide for your family and getting to a point where you could be the breadwinner for your family.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you've moved away from basketball and you're doing your own thing, you're an entrepreneur, you have your own business.
Yeah.
Has that why changed? And if so, what is it now?
Yeah, no, my why is my family, my immediate family now, my kids, my 2 daughters and my wife. Fatherhood is amazing. It really is. You don't know if you're doing something right or wrong, but you're giving 100% every single day. And it changes and it shifts. Providing for them is something that it drives me over the edge for sure, of giving everything I possibly can and figuring it out and going out to the world that will not, like you back or do anything, but you know what you're doing it for. That gives me a chip on my shoulder of, pursuing. So that's my why and reason in my kids. I don't see nothing else that's stopping me and putting a smile on their face every single day and trying to make sure their future's set and moving the needle for them.
Beautiful, man. And just a beautiful way to end the podcast. I love that message. Alex, dude, can't thank you enough for your time today, man. This has been awesome. You're so well spoken and you're a joy. It's been a joy for me to just listen to your story and your journey. It's certainly inspirational. And I hope that I know others who listen to this podcast are going to find some inspiration and motivation, because you've been through a lot, man, and you've come out on the other end a better man. So this has been awesome. But real quick, before we sign off, where can people find you and more of your work?
Oh, man, you can find me at www.amongstselitecapital.com for my investment fund. You can find me at Act Right, for Instagram as well. Everything Act Right, Instagram, social media. ACKRIGHT. That was my nickname in high school, and I stuck with it. Act Right. Yeah. But I appreciate you, Nick, for locking in with me. I know you was on vacation, if I'm not mistaken, but you got back to me and stuff like that. So all we got is our word, and you're a man of your word more than anything. All right, so I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate it, man. I was in Colombia for a wedding for a week, so that was
That's nice.
That was fun. Probably a lot of stories I can't say on this podcast, but I'll tell you what, it was a fun time.
That's part 2.
That's part 2, my Colombian stories. Alex, dude, again, can't thank you enough, man. Wishing you all the best, and let's definitely stay in touch.
All right, appreciate it, bro. Thank you. Bye-bye.